This morning, we have one of our sessions, a training session. We don't normally share our training sessions, but this session is especially important because it's about insurance. And Peter Craig, who's been in our office here for how many years, Peter? 10 years here. He's with Heidrick and Company. And the uniqueness of Heidrick and Company is that they're based actually on Sanibel, aren't they?
Right. Heidrick and Company Insurance and Risk Management home office is on Sanibel Island. This is their second office.
So the good thing about that is that it's not a company that's based out of Seattle, Washington, or Iowa that doesn't know about what it means to be in a coastal area.
Exactly.
And so that's the uniqueness that you offer, and you're right here in the office. So, I mean, it's really, really handy. I can just come out my door and go down the hallway and ask you a question and you get an answer right off the bat. And I know that from personal experience where I've sent friends to you, you know, for myself and for them, you know, they've been really happy with the results that they get. It's an instant answers, and that's what's really awesome, that service. So I thank you very much, Peter, for doing that. So we're going to go through some various topics here. Peter, you want to just start by introducing yourself a little bit?
Sure. I'm Peter Craig with Heidrick and Company Risk Management, Insurance and Risk Management, and I am the new business development associate, and glad to be with you today. I've been involved with my own agency and RE/MAX for over 10 years, and I joined Heidrick this past year. Their second office is right here in the RE/MAX building in Fort Myers, which makes it, like Maury said, very convenient and a lot of opportunity. And you're right in the line of fire. You have to be available and also come up with the answers, because it's important to inform everybody. So it's a challenge that I have greatly enjoyed, and now, you know, Heidrick and Company's full staff is enjoying. And
Peter, the thing that I've noticed, and sorry to interject, but Irma was one hurricane we went through, and out of Irma there were a set of conditions that started being set up in the insurance industry, and then we went into Ian, which was a totally different kind of a storm. And so you know, people ask me, well, how's the market? How are you dealing with stuff? And I've been a broker for a long time. And I said, since Ian, it's almost like every phone call, every issue is different. And most of them stem somehow or another intertwined to insurance. Either insurance, either an open claim, or not being able to get it, or the wrong criteria, or any number of issues. And so, I mean, that's why I think it's so important right now, especially, you know, the storm was over a year ago, but we're still having the ramifications of that. It's like this ever-going tide coming in and going out of more issues that come along. So thank you again for that.
Right, I agree with you there. Wrapping up the issues with the existing damage and the claims is a tremendous issue that, you know, both myself, my whole family have been dealing with, and pretty much everybody here in town, especially near the coast in Lee County, and to a certain extent the flood damage in Collier too. The situation with the carriers is improving, and it's been improving recently. There's been quite a bit of improvement on opening up new markets.
New carriers coming into Florida.
Existing carriers that want to open up markets, and there'll be new carriers that come in and assume citizens' policies.
Good.
So they're looking optimistic with the future. We want to keep those storms away as well. You know? We want to protect our homes better. Right. We want to try to mitigate further damage on flood, and we want to try to mitigate damage on wind. We want to trim our trees and put up storm panels and try to protect barriers.
Even down on Fifth Avenue in Naples, I noticed, like, I lived on Marco for a number of years. Well, on Marco, because commercial buildings, we always had these panels. You know, they would go up maybe 3 feet or whatever, 2-3 feet, and you put them in the door, and they were waterproofing basically the commercial structure. Well, now all of a sudden Fifth Avenue, I guess they need to do that too. Now all of a sudden it's popping up in the commercial buildings, so
Sure.
they're actually now starting to do the same kind of thing.
Mitigating this further flood damage.
Absolutely.
My cousin's buying those for his home up there in Hernando Beach, where it flooded most of the neighborhood in this last storm, Dahlia, but he was just high enough. He was in a little bit of a higher area, and he said if it had come up 6 inches more, he would have just had some tremendous damage because he enclosed his downstairs. Well, he bought flood barriers for the doors that go up 3 feet.
Good.
So there's things you can do to seal the doors and protect the windows, and when the force of the water comes up against the home, it can come in a lot of different cracks.
Yeah.
So I mean that's difficult, but we have to understand that that type of event is very extreme, and hopefully a very rare occurrence. But we do want to use it as an example to be prepared for the future, and also deal with our current situations, like you're saying, about trying to wrap up the repairing the damage and closing your claims, and shopping for insurance on renewal is a good idea now.
Sure.
Also getting the reports. You want to
pull up.
show a little bit of information about Heidrick first, and then we'll kind of go into okay, is that page 1? Okay. So this is a little bit about Heidrick Company Insurance. This is a new brochure that Holly Martin there, the vice president, listed. That's her information.
Great.
Has put together, and right now we're putting one that has a QR code, and this can be later, so you just go right into our quoting site. This just shows a little bit about Heidrick and Company, and they're right there on Sanibel, so they took the brunt of the storm. A lot of their customers, and the Florida insurance market was difficult before the storm, and after the storm it became extremely challenging, and it has been continued to be challenging as far as gathering the proper documentation. But that is information of why the rates went up due to inflation, cost of reinsurance, insolvencies, past insolvencies, litigation costs on claims, assignment of benefits abuses, which has been now removed, and as of January 1st is not allowed in Florida, and with the attorney contingency and fee multipliers and one-way attorney fees. So there's just a list of information of why we're in the situation we are. And a list of our staff. If you can go to a part of our staff and part of our team.
Right into the next page.
Go into the
page 2.
Heidrick Flyer 2, right? Next to that, to the right. Okay, so, and then very important on the top right of the second page of our brochure is underwriting red flags. Below is a list of items that often makes obtaining insurance more challenging. This does not mean coverage is not attainable, but we need to ask for extra documentation. So we need to slow down the quoting process. And I've been slow myself down, make sure we get all of the information needed due to vacancies from the homes being unlivable, open claims. The claims need to be closed prior to obtaining.
Peter, is this affecting buyers if they're buying property and they're looking to get their insurance? So you're anticipating it will take a little bit longer to get insurance?
If there's an open claim, they can get a builder's risk policy. On wind, they can get a builder's risk, but not the wind. They won't be able to get wind insurance if there's an open claim on the wind policy, on the homeowners with the wind. They can assume a flood policy with damage and an open flood claim, but not the hazard or the wind part. So the wind carriers want to see the damage repaired before they'll insure for wind. So you can do a cash deal and repair, and then get wind. You can close at the builder's risk.
But some of the other issues that you point out there with its red flags.
Well, typically, it's always been if there's situations like this, then they need to be looked at. I mean, polybutylene pipes, you pretty much need to replace those before closing. I mean, on a very rare exception, and very, very new polybutylene, but there's very little new polybutylene.
Sure.
There were so many, and basically it's knee-jerking reaction to problems that the carriers come upon on claims, and then they go backwards and try to exclude. So that's the reason why polybutylene pipes are an underwriting red flag. On the solar panels, it's Tesla roofs. Tesla has a new solar roof, but they've had problems with those. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the carriers are, well, you know, to a certain extent, the carriers have to be able to write a risk. They have to see that it's going to be a good risk, and until something's been proven, or there's a track record, or if there's a bad track record, they're just going to hold up. You know, certainly not to say anything bad about the roofs. I've just heard that this is underwriting red flag, and they have to look at, and certain carriers are only available for certain types of risks, and we would have to look at a more extensive list of carriers.
So actually, it's interesting on the solar panel. There's multiple people going around knocking on doors saying, hey, you know, we'll sell you, solar panels and stuff like that. And I say, no, I don't want to. Oh, it's no problem with your roof. We got a 10-year warranty. I said, yeah, but I have a new roof that's got a 40-year life. What would 10 years do for me? I mean, so the 10 years warranty may not even be worth anything if the company's not around.
We want to, you know, there are going to be more and more people putting more and more solar on with the programs they have to pay back pay the electric bill. But as far as insurance goes, like I say, the most important thing is to get the value of the of replacing the units. Make sure it's okay with the insurance company to allow those on your roof. Yeah. Make sure you increase the dwelling value to cover those if they were damaged. Also get an estimate on storing them and removing and detaching them, to give a copy of those to your adjuster if there's a loss, so that they can properly document, or they could have a better guideline of the costs of that part of this of doing it. And then I think Rich Galvano was saying the other day, best time to put solar panels on is when you're planning to replace the roof cover, because they do need to come off when the roof cover is replaced. And if you are replacing a roof cover due to maintenance, the cost of removing and replacing those panels is up to you, the owner. So if you could time it, so there's more things to consider. Sure. You know, is all. But you know, as far as energy saving, I think it's great, you know, to try to reduce your imprint, and also to save. So and also as the technology develops, there'll be more items to things to think about as far as solar panels. It's, you know, if you look at those underwriting red flags, older roof covers, I mean, if you get over 20 years, 15 years on the shingle roof, the underwriters want a new roof cover unless there's 5 or more useful life left. Perfect roof cover. It's exception with the 4 points, beautiful. You just have to be understanding that those are red flags, and certain situations should be updated before they are insurable.
Okay. So what kind of roofs? Because I know you got asphalt shingle. Maury said he's got the roof that's, you know, metal.
Well, metal roof seems to be the most resistant to the wind, and especially the hip shape. And most of the carriers are going 25 years, or some carriers are just, as long as they're in 5 years useful life left, they'll give more. Yeah. As far as get their guidelines, and I think the tile, there are still some carriers that will do 25 years if there is 5 years useful life left. The 3-tab shingles are 15 years. And if you had a roof that was even close to the age where they would consider replacing it, and there are any problems with it on the 4 point, they could very well deny coverage. You would want to make sure that the roof is maintained before the inspection. If the inspection found something and it was minor, I would have it repaired and update the reports that the underwriters look at if you're trying to get them to look at a situation that is favorable for a risk. But the roof covers, you know, I mean, they've changed a lot of rules on, like no subrogation, also attorney fees, and also they are depreciating some payments on roof covers to a certain extent. Some of the carriers more so on the roofs that depreciate more, like the 3-tabs quicker. And
what about barrel tile roofs?
Barrel tile, if it's in great shape, has 5 years left. Some of the carriers will still go 25 years, but it's best to replace those. Like this building here was replaced with metal barrel tile, looking a metal roof that looks like tile, barrel tile. You know, the metal's the best. If we could go to the right flood deck page, I just want to go over a few things here. Sure. This is a a flood declarations page, and when you, as a realtor, list a home, you want to find out if they have a flood policy. And if they have a flood policy, they can use the information and write a new flood policy on the old rating system, which is more favorable than the new rating system in a lot of areas as far as premium goes. So this is what it looks like, okay? If you go to 3 over and you see flood zone, that one, this is a flood zone determination. So if the owner gives you this, and down in the middle says flood zone AE, on the, here you go on the left, if you go over to the right now, you see it says flood zone AE. That means it's in a lender required flood zone. If it's an X, it's not in a lender required flood zone, but they're all flood zones that could flood. An AE says that it should flood, or they predict it would flood once in 100 years. But this is the determination, and go back to the deck page where it says right flood, about 4 over to the right. Yep. So that's the deck page, and you'll see the name I quoted myself, okay, and the agents on the left, and the companies up top, and the deck page will say that, of course, the premium, and this is actually a quote, so this is not the deck page yet, but the deck page will have an FAP on it. It'll show that it's a government policy. So this is just actually a quote. So you want to look for a copy of the seller's flood deck if you can have it, and put that on your listing as a supplement. Pop it up in the supplements. Go over to and let's see here, this one. Where it says insurance. Okay, that's our website, and that's where you're going to go backwards. Remember, it'll go back to the page that we click the link in. Okay, this is a form that you can upload as a listing, and this, if you're listing the property, and the seller's agent finds, the buyer, the buyer's agent finds a buyer, unless you're working both sides, can list this, can put this in the supplements, share this with the buyer. If you click on the logo, it goes to our quoting website. Okay, and you can list down and click on various items that you want to post, probably homeowners and condo. So that's something that could be put in your supplements as well.
That's great.
And if you go to the flood maps, there are 2 in between the right flood there. You have to list, up on that. Okay, this is an explanation of the flood. So this county we're in is very low areas, very, very close to the ocean, the Gulf, and also the river. So it's prone for more flooding than some of the other counties. Collier County, it tends to flood only on the coast and south, and as you get over east, a little bit east, it goes up, the elevation goes up on a ridge. We don't have that. So most of the flood you'll see, it says like 100-year floodplain. A lot of those flood zones, the V and the VE are the lowest, and then you go AE, AH, you see that a lot in Naples now, in East Naples, they have AH quite a bit of areas. So pretty much everything except C, X, B, and X500 require flood insurance if you're going to get a loan. And see how it's X is 500-year floodplain. So if you had a 100-year floodplain and you have a mortgage 30 years, there's things a 30% chance during the life of the mortgage it'll flood, which sounds a lot more than 100 years. Sure. Once in 100 years. So it is prone for flooding, and it's an explanation of the flood zones. And if you go to the flood map to the right of this little link up top, that'll explain kind of the different types of flood zones. So there's more flood zone than you think. And they're constantly remapping. Every time there's an event, they'll remap. It takes 7 years. And they just finished remapping. And it came out in November after the storm hit. So it was last year, November. So you'll see a lot of base flood elevation required floods higher than it used to be. So it's always coming up. And unless you build more than a foot above base flood, if you build 3 or 4 feet above what you're supposed to build, it could help the flood premium be lower. But otherwise, you'd be in a new rating system, which could be more expensive if you're just building the base flood on a new structure, not trying to use the seller's flood deck.
Right.
for that information, you get the old rating. So flood is real important to know. That's the first thing I check. And also we would go back. Let's go to where does my dollar go? And then we'll go to most important and finish up. Okay, this is just a breakdown of where the money went. Citizens premium dollars a couple of years ago, I think it was in 01. And for every dollar they took in, they spent $1 and almost 17 cents. So they had to dip into the reserves, but a lot of the money that the premium dollars go to water loss. You see 39 cents down there, big underneath the in the middle. So a lot of broken water pipes are the most common claims that you go. So you can see where all of the money goes. The commission's they only pay 8%. Hurricane 16 cents. So, you know, it's a little less. You think that hurricane is the most, but it's water claims. So a lot of the carriers are limiting the coverage on how much they can pay on burst water pipes if the pipes haven't been updated and the home is a certain age. Basically, they're in it to make money, and they try to use the finance market to make money. So let's go over to the one on the far left next to this. There you go. So these are the most important things. Bullet points, you know, check for unrepaired. If the house is needing repairs in this market, they're going to want a big cut in price, the buyers, and then it's going to be hard to get insurance. So it's even more important to have the house updated. But the underwriting guidelines are a little stiffer these days. They're being more careful. So we really want to make sure repairs are done, especially if it's been damaged by the hurricane. If the home is under 20 years, but it has hurricane damage, I would do a 4-point to show it's been repaired. If the home is less than 20 years old, it's in perfect damage. I just need to know if it had shutters and a wind vent. If it's 5-10 years old, just want to make sure everything's okay. Doesn't need those reports, but you know, we want to qualify the flood zone, get the flood deck, find out if there's any damage. If there is, if it's an older home than 20 years, you need an updated 4-point in wind mitigation to quote. So, and if there's a roof,
you know, actually one of those things too with that I'm going to ask you is when you have a little bit of an older home that you're doing a listing on, I kind of think there's a couple things. Actually, going ahead and having the seller go ahead and get a 4-point and wind mitt in advance. An
older home, that'd be great.
Because that way you have documentation on, you know, everything works fine. It's not the full inspection, and it's not that expensive to get the 4-point wind mitt at the same time, and have that be documentation you can give to a buyer, because that's going to delay the process. Or what happens is some realtors, they speculate, oh, that roof, because a lot of realtors don't understand what we're talking about.
You got to understand what the underwriters do. They look at these documents and they make their judgments upon these documents. They don't see the house. They don't know anything else. They just look at the document. The document doesn't look good, they're not going to give you the risk. So, and they want to be prepared. And we have to be prepared to quote with documents a little bit. I think we just have to be more thorough and ask for more items the underwriters are asking for. So it's a very good idea that the seller's agent gets, if it's an older house, make sure stuff's updated, get a 4-point. You know, it's $100 an inspection, something like that. You know, it would really make things go quicker on the sale.
I see that we saved a 4-point inspection. Can I pull that up?
Go ahead and pull that up. Show what that 4-point looks like. So now we're done with flood, and this is wind and hazard and fire and pipes. And so the 4-point has the roof, has the HVAC, which is all the air conditioning and heating system, has all the piping system, and all of the electric system. It's those 4 issues that the underwriters look at where the claims are generated generally.
That what's on here? Peter, can we take one of these? Is that
this is just a list on, it's not, I can get you a blank 4-point, no problem.
Yeah, so these are the areas that the 4-point inspector would go, and I think I had one done.
It'd be a good idea to show the sellers that if they had an old house.
Oh, this is why we're doing this right now, so the seller can see in advance, you know, the idea, what is it that a 4-point is, what is it that, like an elevation certificate is the other part, you know, which if you're going to get a survey or whatever, at the time they do the survey, go ahead and have an elevation certificate. And many times they have an elevation, if it's a resale, they may have already the elevation certificate when they bought the home themselves. But interestingly enough, one of our agents here pointed out that those elevation certificates have 2 boxes as to when the elevation was taken. Some of them are like 1928
Well, there's a
or something.
1929 and a
19
1988. Most of the 29 datum's older, and that 1988 datum has to be converted to, and then you have to subtract 1.2 from the 29 datum. But basically, unless you're more than 1 foot above base flood, the elevation certificates are not as determining a factor. They're using a different algorithm that determines how fast the water comes to you, and how quick it comes up canals and so forth. That don't have elevations. It's just, and the only time an elevation certificate seems to help lately is when it's built up higher than it needs to be, 2-3 feet higher. Most of the time, the Cape and I know around here the inspectors were asking the builders to build a foot above base flood anyway. So it's just tough because water can come up so quick.
Yeah.
Any block home get on the water just like that, or if you close down just like that, water comes up like it's no big deal. You say, oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I mean, for our area, it hasn't happened.
Blocked.
It hasn't happened
No,
for many.
You want to be prepared. You have to be
but-
prepared and understand.
So if you were a buyer, I mean, I wouldn't be overly crazy about,
If you were building a home, I would try to build it as high as possible.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
If you were buying a home, you just want to make sure you have it insured. And the best way to know that you're having insured with the best premiums is if the seller had a government flood policy, and you can use that to get that, and then don't let that lapse. If it lapses more than 30 days, you're going to go on the new rating.
Yeah.
And then the best thing is to, of course, if you do have a loss, take lots of photos, document damage, get copies of all the estimates to share with the adjuster, and then get his email and card and follow up once a week. And that's the toughest thing. The chances of an event like that happening here very low, but the chances of events happening all around everywhere would be, they're going to be a little more common these days. So you want to be prepared a little more. That's all. It kind of is a wake up and prepare.
Yeah, it's more of a wake up.
As far as the wind premiums, they'll come down as long as there's no more hurricanes.
Right.
And as far as the flood premiums, they'll always be there, and you just want to make sure you're insured.
Between Irma and Ian, we've replaced a lot of roofs.
The roof cover issues.
So I mean, our roofs, almost all of them are.
And the laws and the litigation of the lender, the insurance industries changes are going to help the abuse of a system both ways. I think I think the industry's in a great way to be very, very healthy in the future.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Going back to Maury talking about the 4-point inspection. So if I have a listing and they do the 4-point inspection before we list it. So the buyers come in and they purchase it. Can they use that same 4-point inspection?
As long as it's 1 or 2 years old,
So it's as long as.
Right, if they have documents 4-point and the wind they just bought the house 2 years ago, you can use those. If it's a condo and they have shutters, they got to get their own wind for condos. But it's a minor part of the premium. It's just the interior build out. But usually in the condos, you can get those from property management, especially when they update the roofs.
Because it's going to be mostly the association.
Yep.
So that makes it a lot easier.
9 out of 10 times the association would have windmill if there's available in a condo, but you can use the seller's documents. The main thing is, like, one came over to me today, it black and white photos, he scanned it, and they need color. So everything's email.
But with a house, I mean, I think it's one of those documents that any agent isn't going to start to speculate on, like the age of the roof. They're going to speculate like, oh, well, there's only, this roof has to go. No, there's like, well, we had the issue nine more years.
Supply insurance, and then there's claims. And so you would be prepared in case there's a claim. So all this documentation, how your house looked before the loss, even if they're not asking for it. It's good preparation for a potential future loss, and to get to really help that side, which you're not even really thinking about. So all this is great preparation. If you go through it quickly, like Maury says, be prepared. Then the rest of the time we're talking about the sunshine and enjoying Florida, getting your mortgage, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Piece of cake. Yeah. Let me see. I think there were a couple of chat comments here, and they were early on. So, okay. All right. I think it's, the sound came back up afterwards. So, any other questions before we terminate this on this subject?
We're sorry you're not here to enjoy a bagel.
Yeah, we got bagels and schmear and stuff. So, All right, everybody, thank you very much for your participation. Thank you, Peter. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it a lot.
Thanks, Maureen.
And what number can they call you at?
239-686-0401.
Okay,
Okay,
great. All right, sounds good. Thank you, Peter.
have a great day.